Awesome. Finally got it going, man. All right, guys. Well, hey, it's your host today, Ryan, aka back again, man, with another episode for the come up. Got an amazing guest today. So today's guest, he was an Army Ranger for approximately 7 years, and is currently right now a software developer at Amazon. We're of course gonna dive into his time at Regiment and just kind of the path he took to becoming a developer with just insights on both. And like I told Sergeant Braxton, if y'all see me looking to the left a lot, it's not because I'm just like looking away. I got my questions right here. So that way, if we're having a good conversation, I don't, lose track or not. But yeah, that's my guest. So Sergeant Braxton, man, welcome.
What's up? What's up?
Cool. And just a little fun fact for you guys before we begin, actually. That movie the movie and superhero y'all came to know and love, Superman, is based on a true story. It's actually based on Sergeant Braxton. So hate to spill the beans, man, but the Superman y'all known and came to love is alive and well. Cool, Sergeant Braxton, man. We're gonna jump right into it. Like I said, I have a couple key topics that I already planned out. So of course, what better way to start than growing up? So I want to start right there. Just kind of give us a dynamic as far as, of course, how it was growing up for you. I know your father was in the Marine Corps, which I'm sure you'll bring up. He kind of had that strict discipline mindset, whereas your mother was more of the gentle-hearted mother figure. So you kind of had, the best of both worlds. So just kind of let's start off right there. Just kind of run us through your childhood.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, my dad was in the Marine Corps. Was in the Marine Corps when joined the police force. He was a police officer. Just trying to affect the community and make a change, positive change. And then went retired from the police department, and now he's a he handles security clearance at a nuclear facility. So still just continue to move up and progress in life. Um, and the same thing with my mother. She started as a teacher, went to school. She was like salutatorian, so second in her class. So she graduated college, became a teacher, became a principal. Now she works at back at my hometown's district office. Just trying to move up and make a greater change. And then I guess overall, my story, as just like what's been said in through my parents, is just always make progress to be better. Just like going back to my father, there was times where my grandparents and would actually go out and do like sharecropping where they would help farmers you know pick stuff out of the fields and to fill out a market. Just really old school, making little to nothing but making ends meet with kids and stuff. And then and that was like a great story that I always hear, like just the struggle and making changes. And on my mother's side, my grandfather couldn't read, and my mother taught him how to read as an adult. So made him more marketable, and just made was able to push him forward to do better things in his life. And then that's where that's that same mentality to always do better was kind of instilled with me at a very young age, from playing sports and just doing things like that, uh, to build leadership capabilities, to build overall resiliency. I think that's the number one thing that a lot of people get through their younger years, um, or that we don't even talk about today. That we really need is the ability at a young age to build resiliency. Um, and I kind of have this like thought process to where, uh, if something's stressful and you feel like it's hard, you're building your resiliency, and if you feel like life is more hard than easy, then you might need to go try a little bit something harder to actually understand what hard is. Push yourself to that limit, so when you come back to whatever you were doing, you're like, oh, this isn't nothing. So that's kind of like the overall mindset that I kind of took with life, especially growing up, especially having that two parent household, dad a little bit more strict, my mother, that soft listening voice to balance everything out.
Yeah, of course. And you mentioned, of course, that you were a very hyper kid to the point of where people were like, "Man, this kid needs to be on some kind of medication." I believe was the way you had put it to me. So, yeah, kind of walk us through that, man. As far as, and I could, and honestly, before that, I could see And you were also very smart, you had mentioned too. And I could see that part, being with you at the unit, even though we're in different platoons. I could definitely see like, oh man, Sergeant Braxton, he's very smart when he was giving us a brief or a demonstration on movements and all those different things we were learning. I was like, oh man, I could see we're the smart, but like hyper, I couldn't see it at all, man. Like you're so laid back and chill. And even when I go talk to you when we get chow, I'm like, this guy was not hyper. So just kind of
Yeah.
walk us through that, man. Like being like hyper and smart as a kid and stuff like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's just like I was just, young, just had a lot of energy and, I just remember just at one point, people would be like ask my parents like, "Oh, you're gonna put them on some medicine or something?" But my parents were totally against it. Just in a world where people are just over medicated, over diagnosing themselves. Like I said, it goes back to that resiliency thing where you kind of like just learn how to adapt and overcome to situations. And just sometimes medicine is good for some people in like extreme cases, but like sometimes it's just instilling discipline. Sometimes instilling to your child like sometimes you need to listen more than speak you know actually appreciate the people that are around you and kind of sit back. You learn more and you will benefit greatly if you kind of just like take a step back. And I think that's kind of like how it translated into as I got older is like I feel like I still have that like hyper tendency, especially when it comes to my thought process and my thinking. And sometimes I need to settle down, but it's like I understand it, I'm cognizant of it, I'm aware of it, and I know how to counteract it. And I do it without taking some ADHD type medicine or
Yeah.
something to kind of like tranquilize me. And I'm like just stuck or can't really do anything or be who I genuinely am as a person. So yeah, no, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's just I feel my parents decided that it would be better for me in the long run. I totally agree with them that you kind of just understand who you are as a person and you ultimately just adapt to your environment from who you are as a person.
Got you. And once again, there's a big vocal point, through childhood and just overall, like throughout your whole life, which is discipline. So I kind of wanted to see if there was something specific, um, as far as how your parents were disciplining you, whether it was from your more, I would assume probably more from your father. I mean, I'm pretty sure your mother as well. But how exactly were they disciplining you? Was it through whoopings, pep talks, constant duties around the house? Like, how exactly were they installing that discipline in you?
Yeah, so I would say with my mother, like you said, it wasn't really most of the discipline came from my mother, but my mother was more of like that soft touch to where, you know, I always wanted to like make her happy, didn't want to disappoint her. So like, she said something that like, took it to heart.
Yeah.
My father was more of like, I mean, but then my mother, she kind of stayed on like the lower threat level side of things. So if like I didn't do nothing too crazy, maybe that talk is what it is. But like I said, I was like hyper and just bouncing off the wall sometimes. So it's like you really you don't understand the consequences of your actions. So like I would say I would say like not at my younger years, not I would say maybe when I was like 5 or so like that to where it's like you're just doing stuff and you don't really actually understand the world and you don't understand really the consequences of your actions. So you just like bouncing off the wall. So you just do something extra. I got whippings, for the most part to um, kind of have some type of memory that whatever I did wasn't okay. And I feel like, it was a very short lived moment of me not thinking about the consequences of my actions, just having that authoritative figure, just having those consequences. Because ultimately, I would rather have a whooping than be a grown man who didn't know how to understand boundaries or understand the
Hmm.
repercussions for my actions and now I'm in jail or dead,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
because I have no respect because I feel like that's 10 times worse than, a whooping at a younger age. Um, and then at the end of the day, I think also it's like, people are like afraid of, the whole whipping, being getting whooped or corporal punishment and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like my parents were articulate into why they did things they did. It was very understood, and it was never done out of out of uncontrolled anger or something like that. You know, it was always like sat down, talked about what I did, why I did what I did was wrong. And usually most of the time it feels like a one time thing to let it pass. But if those talks didn't pass, that's when the whooping, came in because they
Mm-hmm,
already tried to
mm-hmm.
talk to me. And, I didn't take any type of concern or issue with whatever they said. So it's like, all right, well, now you're going to actually hear me. so,
No, yeah, man,
um,
100%.
so, at this end of the day, it's like, it for me, it was like they never did anything out of spontaneous anger or just like came at me swinging. It was more like a conversation first, and then they would have another conversation. But after that second conversation, it was like, all right, well, you know what time it is. It's time to get that whooping.
Yeah,
So it's
100%.
like it was mostly, it was like, yeah, you have repercussions for your actions, and not because oh, they're uncontrolled anger and stuff like that. And I feel like that was like a big difference. In that whole situation, to where for me, it didn't negatively affect me. I feel like it was a more beneficial than anything.
Yeah, and I think a good way I want to end this topic as far as growing up, and then we're gonna move into your high school years where you continue to master that discipline, but you're gonna get introduced more to that grit and determination that is gonna carry on when you go to regiment and just all those things throughout your current time in your life right now. But what's one thing that from your mother and from your father, from your mother and from your father that they taught you that you always remembered? Example, my father, one thing that always stuck with me that he taught me like years ago was never let anyone change who you are. Always be true to yourself, always be who you are. And that always stuck with me. Was there anything, words of encouragement like that, or anything that you can give from your mother's side or from your father's side that you still remember to this day?
I think the biggest thing that they taught me was just um, perception is a lot of times people's reality. And that was like a common theme that just always passed throughout my life. But they were initially the first ones that said that, kind of, taught me that, just putting, being in environments that, somebody like you never, normally wasn't in, and you're trying to melt into different groups and make, positive changes in your life and stuff like that. You know, you always have to present yourself a certain way, because if you don't, then they're going to make assumptions, possibly negative assumptions, if you give them something to talk about. So like that's so for that point, just a small example where at a young age, about how you dressed as an individual, how you presented yourself. I was never allowed to like sag my pants or do anything like that, or like the way I spoke. My mother was a teacher, and then my best friend mother was a teacher, so how I spoke was very important. I think I probably went downhill as far as like using correct grammar all the time now, but
Yeah.
especially when I was younger, they were already just correcting me. um, so it's like I feel like one of the biggest things was just like perception is a lot of people's reality. So you should be really cognizant of how you present yourself, not to kind of like not be who you are as an individual or as a person,
Yeah.
but to like not close doors and opportunities on yourself based on other people's biases and prejudice, and get what you need to get out of the situation. Don't let them dictate what you get.
Got you. Very good, man. And then once again, let's go ahead and jump to your high school years, man. So, sports, specifically football, was a vocal point in high school. From talks that we have offline, just due to once again establishing that grit and establishing that determination. So let's go ahead and jump into that. Just kind of give us what was the timeline for how long you played football for?
Yeah, I started playing football from when I was 8 years old, all the way until high school, and I played a little bit when I went to Clemson for a short time. But we can get to that later. But like just the story of overall, sports. Like going back to the point where I was like, oh, I'm an overactive kid, hyper. It's just like sports is like a must for kids like that. Just somewhere
Hmm.
to channel that energy
Yep.
and just like throw it away and just like have something to do and something to focus on. And then also I think like sports is for a kid who has like all that energy. It helps them like focus on whatever the task is at hand. Because if you're playing a team sport, you can't just be all over the field and stuff like that. So if you didn't focus, or you didn't pay attention, there were consequences. You might have messed up on a play, or you didn't do something right, and you hurt it. So it's just like repetition is to get better on focusing and channeling that energy. And I think that was like the biggest. That was like the starting disciplines. The starting of growing discipline within me at a young age. And then just like as I got older, things always more competitive. Um, and I think that like sports within itself is just a overall cage of sometimes, especially in football, like you're gonna have to deal with the bullying.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to
Mm-hmm.
deal with people doubting you, questioning you, and ultimately what it is like you're gonna have to prove yourself. One, you're gonna have to prove that you're not gonna back down. That you can stand on your own 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to show. You have to show that whatever people say isn't gonna necessarily get to you, because if it gets to you, then they technically win. And then just gives you your chance to be like, all right, I'm gonna stand up and show what I got. And then when you show what you have, overall people end up respecting you. Even if you're not like the most athletic or you're the most talented, whatever. Like I said, I've seen people who were way less athletic than me or whatever, but if they decided to like, all right, I'm gonna stand my ground, as far as what's being placed in front of me, then people in turn respect you. And I think people nowadays just want respect to be given to them, not be earned based off their actions, and what they provide, being able to stand on their 2 feet. So I think that's where a lot of sports came into play. And like I said, my dad he was like all state in football, so he was very prominent far as encouraging and giving words of wisdom and motivation. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, like I said, just having him talking to me, and then having good coaches, you kind of learn how to start building that resiliency, um, building building knowing how to come back and stand up for yourself, and that overall, like regardless, still played over and over in my life as I got older past football.
I got you. Yeah, and that's definitely something I want to revisit, just overall the impact of sports. But since we're on the topic of football, we're going to talk more about football and, resiliency and just overcoming all those different emotions while you're playing, and then how that translates into molding you as a man, or if you're a woman, other sports, whatnot, just the impact of sports, right? But before that, you actually played multiple positions. So I do want to give the audience indication of every position you played, but also how you had hinted on, once again, offline, that it had hindered you. And the reason it hinders you, for the audience who maybe not are as inclined to sports, is if you're almost like you're a jack of all trades, but you're not a master of none. You're not solely getting better at one position. You're not getting better at being a running back. Okay, how to block as a running back, how to read defense. Just all these different things. You're just moving around, and the coaches are basically like, hey, let's just use this athleticism to our advantage and put them where we need to. So it's not really going to help as much whenever you want to go to scholarships and stuff like that. And I mean, it is, but yeah, I mean that's the best way I could put it. Really, it's just you just don't become a master
Yeah.
of one thing. So just kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, like yeah, unless you're like some freak of nature where you're just like 6'6" and or 6'3" or something like that, 200
Yeah.
something pounds, then like yeah, playing all these different positions, like you stand out on the field. But like for me, where I was like, 5'10", but I still was like almost 200 pounds. 200 pounds, I still ran a high 4.4. Bench my max in high school was like 335 on bench. Squat was around 525 or somewhere around that range. Deadlift over five in high school. Like those, like
Huh.
that's one of the things I realized is like I had incredible numbers, like
Yeah.
statistically by like other people that I would see getting recruited and their ability to play. Like I
Yeah.
had like insane numbers to where I was like I should be doing some amazing stuff. Even to I didn't even tell you this part, but like I remember I was like at a hotel during the weekend, and then they were having like a every year like each state has all their coaches come together to talk about new rules and changes and stuff like that. But we
Mhm.
ended up staying like in the whole same hotel as like another high school team, and they saw me and they were trying to recruit me to come to their school, and like they're like, oh yeah, we would pay for all this. We have connections to this university, and they were just trying to do that, but like my parents didn't go for it to kind of die down. But it's like it's like the way I looked, like the way I was built, how fast it was, how strong I was, like I was with like college football material. But overall, going back to the point where it's like, yeah, I was playing so many positions where I played inside linebacker, outside linebacker, defensive end, tight end, running back. Um, I played all those positions, and I always stayed on kickoff team, kickoff return, punt return team. A lot of the times to where it's like I stay on the field constantly.
Yeah.
I was definitely in the best shape of my life because just the amount of running I did and how much I had to stay on the field. But then at the end of the day, like most people don't do that. They're on the field for their one position, and they get repetitions over and over in that one thing, and people are known people when they come to see you, they're coming to see you. Usually, colleges at one position. They're not, they don't. If you like are on the field and you're a totally different position, then they just don't feel you as like, all right, you're not that guy to stay in that one position. So it really hinders you. And like another saying that my mother said was like, you have too many irons in the fire, because it can't. For me, it applied to more than just football. It was like I was always good at so many different things. So that if I was trying to do too much, I could never really get good at one thing. And
Yeah.
then that definitely showed in football where I was playing so many positions that, you know, nobody knew what my position was or what I was or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
like and then like I said, I went to Clemson for a year before I decided not to go like stay there because overall I was a poli sci major. It didn't really wasn't positive on what I wanted to do with life, so I felt like I was wasting money, and that's why I joined the military. We'll go into that later, but yeah, I played for the club team at Clemson, and the coach was like, yeah, you're pretty much just telling me I'm D1 material, like I'm like the kids on the club team. I'm just like making look stupid and look silly, you know, that we're playing, and they're like, yeah, you can make a difference at the D1 level and like play. So that was just like encouraging, but then it just also just reminds you that if I was that good when I if I'm that good, like I definitely was that good when I was playing high school ball. With my high school team, and just like so then you start thinking about what were the things that were out of the norm that kind of took you out of that conversation. Like I said, I think it was like constantly being bounced around the field, not having a consistent position, and then also I think a big thing was I didn't really go to a lot of like college football camps because if you missed our running during the summer, you had to make it up regardless of what you had to do, which that's a totally different story. But yeah, like I said, I think the overall moral of the story is stay consistent, try to hone in on your skill, be great be like great at one thing, and just you can know about other things, but just make sure you stick to that one or two things that you're just amazing at, and sharpen your axe, sharpen your sword, tighten your shot group.
Yeah, 100%. And just kind of go back to like earlier when you were just kind of spitting knowledge as far as like, just the impact, we're a little bit of the impact of sports and whatnot. And just overall, that being a key factor of just more molding you, as a man. Um, and once again, sports are just very impactful because it introduces you to pressure, how to deal with emotions as far as anxiety, nervousness, anxiety, meaning you're looking at the crowd like, holy crap, like, what if I get trucked? What if I get hit stick? Like, you're thinking of all these crazy things that you have to mentally overcome so that way you can perform and stay in the game, stay, on the field and just keep your mind there, distracted and just almost like they aren't there. So it's very key, man. And if I have a kid one day, I would definitely, push them to sports, whatever sport it may be. But I know ownership was big, something that we talked about it as it's big for you, resilience as well. But as far as ownership, why do you feel like ownership is important? Important. taking ownership. Yeah.
Far as taking ownership of your mistakes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like yeah, yeah, you're 100% on the hitting the head of the nail. Which is it's always easy to always pass the buck of like why this didn't happen, why you didn't become successful, why
Mm-hmm.
you didn't get picked for this team, why you didn't get for this position, why you didn't do this, why you didn't do that. I mean, but at the end of the day, it's like if you have a passion for something, um, you don't just automatically get it because you want it. You get those things because you've put in the work. You've put in the time. You've dedicated yourself to learn something new, learn the knowledge, prepare yourself for whatever task it is. And if you're not meeting the standards, it's because people ultimately have put in more time than you. They've put in more work. They've dedicated itself to achieving that goal. It's like one of the things where it's like, oh, this person is bigger and stronger than me. He has bigger biceps. It must be genetics. No, I 99 out of 100, he spends more time in the gym than you.
Mm-hmm.
Or at whatever it may be, this person shoots better than me, shoots the basketball better than me. Why? Because they spent, you know, 10 times as many hours shooting a basketball than me. And I think that just real, like, there's always, those things, those unfortunate events, but gets unfortunate events. And if you use that as a reason to why you're not going to why you're not getting the results that you believe you deserve, then you're never going to get it because you're making an excuse of why you don't need to do the work, that somebody should just give you whatever it is on the platter. So it's just like taking ownership of what you've done in your life and what you've done in your life to prepare yourself to do whatever it is that you want to do. So like for example, like I said, for earlier when it came to football, when I look back at the numbers that I was producing, as far as like how fast I was, um, how strong I was, how athletic I was, like all these positions I played, how like I could stay on the field pretty much the entire game because I had like my cardio was good, but it's like where did I mess up? Oh, like I didn't just like say, hey, I want to stick to like this position, maybe two positions at most. I didn't stick up for myself and be like, hey, I want to go to this football camp, and,
Mm-hmm.
meet these coaches, network, there's so much that I could have done better to heighten my chances to be, get a full ride or a scholarship to a college. There's always things I could have done better in those situations. And I've always noticed that if, as long as the faster you take self accountability, the faster you fix those problems that are stopping you from getting where you are.
Yeah. No, 100%. Um, and one of the things that I knew or but you had reinforced to me was, if you want others to put out for you, you need to put out yourself. Meaning, let's continue on the topic of football. If let's say you're in a leadership position, right? If you want to get the most out of your men, but they don't see you after school, after hours in the weight room, they don't see you after hours after school running sprints, running drills, just all those different things. And then you're asking them, hey, put out. But then the first thing that's going to come to their mind is, well, I don't ever see you putting out. So why should I put out for you? It's always going to be that. So be the example. You know what I mean? Be about it. Don't talk about it. So if you do that, others will gladly follow you. Of course, you're going to have those rotten apples in the bunch that are just going to be like, I don't want to do it anyways. I don't care how many sprints you ran. I don't care how many times you went after school to the weight room. I just don't care. But that's something that of course, you don't worry about. That's going to happen naturally. So yeah, man, put out, if you want others to put out for you, you'll put out for them. Something I learned from Devin Braxton. But anyways, man, it seems like you had a lot of more positive distractions than negative distractions, which you're gonna have both in life. You're gonna have positive distractions, meaning gym. Gym is a distraction, it's taking you away from things, but it's a positive distraction because it's helping you become healthy. That's a positive distraction. Negative distraction is going out, going to the clubs. That's negative distraction, right? So once again, it seemed like you had more positives because you were just so honed in on being good on the field, being an athlete, and understandably you had to be because you're being utilized everywhere. You know what I mean? So you had to really pay that attention to detail. So did you ever struggle with um anything as far as because you're a teenager, you want to go get women with the boys drinking, and you're slowly but surely getting introduced to drugs. There's all these different things. Like, did those things ever play a part in trying to derail you or anything like that?
I would say when it came to like alcohol and drugs, like uh no, for the mere fact where it's like, I don't know, I just never had the I never saw the satisfaction into it. Of course, like when I got older, went to college and stuff, I've tried things, but
Yeah.
overall, like I learned really quickly that it sets you back. Like you not only you lose that day of just like partying and doing whatever it is, but you lose that next day because you need to recover and get yourself back normalized by drinking water or whatever it may be. So in my mind, it be like it's always in moderation. And then it's always better if you can just stick it to like the special occasions, and just not doing it all the time. So I think one of the biggest distractions I had, especially like in high school, was my girlfriend at the time. Just you're just young, impressionable. You don't know what right looks like, and then overall, it's like you're spending time into something, um into a person that don't even know who they are yet. Like
Hmm. Yep.
you don't even know you don't know who yourself is. Like you don't
Hmm.
know what you really want. You don't know what's important in your life, because you haven't really spit enjoyed life or actually went through life, had any responsibilities. So I think that's one of the biggest things, especially like people that are like in high school and even young in college. It's like focus on the things that are going to get you in further in life. Like especially as as a young man, I can just speaking as because that's my personal experience. Is like you got to focus on you got to focus on the basics at a very young age when it comes to your dedication to work, your dedication to your education, your dedication to building your finances and being smart with your finances. Because at the end of the day, the quality of pool of women that you're gonna get at your young age, high school, early like 20s, isn't really the caliber of women. If you put that to the side, you will 10 times the caliber of women that you're gonna deal with if you focus on those important things first. And you're gonna have more choices. You're gonna have more. You're gonna have more of what you want, as far as like what's gonna benefit your life and what's gonna be stable, what's gonna be healthy, and things like that. Because you're gonna overall know what you want, and you're gonna be like a more direct and responsible person for that. So that's kind of like my take on what kind of distracted me and what I would have done different was just focused more on those priorities that would have eventually gotten to me to where I am now, probably a little bit faster if I stayed a little bit focused and take away some of the distractions.
Yeah, man. And just to finish off with this topic, with more so women, obviously that's like a big thing nowadays. How do I talk to women? How do I get a woman? But if we're once again speaking to that teenager or even all the way till they're still in college, it's like, man, like experiment for sure. Figure out who you want, figure out what you want, figure out what you don't want, and that happens through experimenting naturally, right? Don't get so caught up in trying to settle down. Um, you know what I mean? Because I mean, really, how are you gonna take a girl seriously when you're still living with your parents? I mean, you're not driving your own car. I mean, how long is that really gonna last? How fulfilling is that really gonna be, knowing that you're constantly having to sneak your girlfriend in and just to do X, Y, and Z and yada yada yada. I mean, establish your life first. Get your career going, get your own place, whether it's apartment, house, whatever. Okay, and then you could really take a girl seriously, and you can really have that influence on people and make your own decisions and stuff like that. So I'll end it off right there with that. But cool. Let's go ahead and we're of course gonna go into your time in Ranger Regiment. But before that, of course, we got to get into the details as far as joining the army and all those things like that. But before you joined the army, you once again alluded to that you had went to Clemson. So just kind of give us a insight as how it was at Clemson, and why ultimately, at one point, ultimately, did you drift and you're like, man, got to get out of here. I'm joining the army.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, I've told you before offline, like I was pretty smart in high school. Like, honest, I had a 3.8, and I can't say I was like completely dedicated to education. So, like, I had some type of intelligence to get me to that point. And then yeah, I got into Clemson, had some scholarships, even had a full ride to a different school. But as far as academics, but Uh, Definitely went to Clemson. Enjoyed my time. It was fun, of course. You're just like you're being thrown into a whole different atmosphere of just like you said, the whole like drinking and smoking and women and all this other stuff. So that was good. But overall, my like on like a serious note, just sitting down and thinking. I was a poli sci major, and I was like, I don't even know if I really want to do anything with this, or is this really what I want to do? Um,
Yeah.
because ultimately it's like, oh, you go poli sci major. Usually they go to law school. You go to law school, then you usually got to go to then you go to some type of firm. Then you got to like work your way up in the firm for years. You're not your own person. So, just like that whole thought process was got to me. And it's like, am I actually being if I am I is my time here beneficial to what I need in my life and what I need to do to make myself better? And ultimately I made that decision to where it's like I need to figure out who I am some more before I start to keep throwing thousands of dollars away just a party and and hang out with people and stuff like that, because ultimately that's not the goal. Those parties and stuff are going to end. So that's why
Hmm.
I end up deciding to cut my ties with Clemson, and join the military, just because I feel like it's stable. You're gonna get a paycheck. You're gonna get the ability for them to like pay for your school if you want to, and then just the opportunities there was like, all right, maybe I should look into that. So decided to leave Clemson. Told my parents. I even told you this story about how I went in there, had a pretty high. I had a high ASVAB score or GT score,
Yeah.
and then they gave me some oh yeah, they gave me some bullshit jobs. And then one of the jobs was EOD, and I tried to do it, and I told my parents. They freaked out. They're like, "Have you ever watched Hurt Locker? You're gonna get blown up or something." They didn't say that, but like that was their fear and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so went back, talked to my dad. He was like, "All right," he was in the Marines, like I said, we talked about earlier. So he kind of gained me up. He's like, "You have a high GT score. You can get whatever you want." So that just adds to the whole concept in life. Is like if you present a value of somebody and it's like indispensable, you have more of a choice and more of a say. So that's why it's important for you to focus on on building your own individual value. But going back to the point where it's like I decided to walk off. I'm like, hey, I'm going to talk to the Marines. It was like I told them, I was like, hey, I still want to I was on the legal thing where maybe I want to do legal. So I was like, hey, I want to be paralegal, whatever. He's like, oh, we don't have that. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go
Hmm.
talk to the Marines. Went to go talk to the Marines. Just like they're like, honestly, the Marines is talking in one ear and talking out the other, because they're like, yeah, they're like, well, you really don't get to choose your job as a Marine. We choose your job for you and all this X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
definitely not listening to you because you're not giving. I don't like
Oh
what you're saying.
man.
But then the army guy comes knocking on the door. He's like, "Oh, we
Yeah.
found your job with the bonus. Come talk to us when you're ready." So I was like, pretty much, I'm just listening to the Marine guy, not trying to show him that I just like was wasting my time with him. So I'm like listening to him some more. I was like, "All right, well, I'll take your card. I'll come back talk to you." I was like, "I want to talk to him." But went back over to the army people. They're like, I was like, "Hey, here it is. We have it all filled out. You just got to sign. Like, you can do this with the bonus, yada yada." So I did was it 6 years for $12,000 bonus to join the army, and I signed it. Um, and that was like the beginning of my military career, per se.
Wow,
So
that's crazy. 6 years. I mean, I was wondering. I was like, dang, like he did seven. Wow, that's um. I'm gonna let y'all guys know who are watching this, man. Dude, don't do it. Sergeant Braxton's really high speed and all that, man. But do 3 years, man. 6 years is a lot. Especially if you're not committed,
yeah,
man, to
not
the army and you're not used to that kind of lifestyle, the traditions, the discipline, and all that stuff, man. You're gonna have a heck of a ride. Especially more so if you don't choose a job that at least will correlate or you have some kind of interest in it. I mean, it's gonna be a miserable time for you. But cool, man. So yeah, I was actually wondering that too, because I was like, okay, he went to the Marines, but it was going one year out the other. So I was like, okay, maybe Sergeant Braxton Smart, maybe it was a in my head, I was like, maybe it was a tactic. Maybe he's like, okay, by leaving, the army recruiter is going to be more inclined. But was it just because he had said you can't choose your job, and right when he said that, you just zoned him out right there?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I wasn't in the Marines, and he was saying that just made it like I wasn't listening, but that just made it worse to where I wasn't listening even more. And yeah, and it was overall a tactic just to get the Army to do what I wanted them to do
That's
because
smart.
they're gonna give you the first thing they're gonna give you, especially join the military. They're gonna give you the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
thing that they have available. They're not gonna really tell you your options. But like I said, if you have value, you're physically you appear physically fit, they're not having to sign like a whole bunch of waivers for you for like, oh, you have a felony charge, something like that. You got to sign a waiver for
Hmm.
you or something like that, or like, just you're smart, you're physically fit, etc., and you're a good candidate. Then they're gonna jump through some hoops to get you through because they have the numbers and criteria that they need
Hmm.
to meet as well. So they're
Yep.
gonna do that little extra work to get that body in. So knowing that, I played the game with by talking to the Marines, and letting them know that I got other options on the table. If you're going to do a little work, or I'm about to go talk to somebody else.
Oh, tactics 101. Y'all hear it first, man. Go ahead and use that walk off tactic right there. It seems to it seems to work wonders, man. But
Yeah.
cool, man. So you overcame the hurdle of getting the MOS you wanted. Luckily, your parents had snapped some sense into you. Um, let's fast forward now to basic training. Where was your basic training, and of course, what was your experience at basic training?
Uh, basic training was at Fort Jackson. Um, that's where they sent me. It wasn't bad at all. I found myself in leadership positions a lot. I definitely got my taste of being in leadership positions. You're gonna have to make hard decisions. You're gonna have to make people, you're gonna have to earn people respect, but then also you're gonna have to, force some respect by, just taking actions that people aren't gonna like. But you got to accomplish your mission, your task, your goal. So, I learned that real quick in basic training, especially with all these different personalities, people who have never been in the military themselves, and they're just trying to figure it out, just like you. So that was definitely a wake up call. But overall, like I strived when I was in basic training. Shot well, physical fitness was good on point. That and then like as long as you're at the right place at the right time, it's like you can't fail. So it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, well, not everybody's as gifted as you, Summer. But shoot for the skies, man. Shoot for the skies. I definitely wasn't one of those guys. I mean, I was gifted in a sense, but I wouldn't say I was a crazy PT stud or whatever the case may be. Yeah, but I did compete. I can compete for sure. But all right. And once again, then you move in AIT, and this is kind of where um you get the Ranger or the Airborne Ranger contract, and this is all due to Sergeant First Class Wilkerson, which of course I'll let you go more into describe, him, his caliber, how he influenced you, how he taught you, et cetera, to get you ready for RASP, which stands for Ranger Assessment Selection Program. For those of you that don't know. So, anyways, yeah, so jumping into that, Sergeant First Class Wilkerson, I actually want to kind of fast forward more to the moment where he really like gravitated towards you, which was when he smoked you. And oddly enough, your reaction was to laugh. And I can't say that was people might see as weird, but I'm kind of the same way. I laugh at like a lot of weird shit, man. I'm just like,
Yeah.
So anyways, walk us through that moment. Like, why was he smoking you? And then just overall when he's like, okay, like wow, like I see something in Sergeant Braxton or whatever, Private Braxton at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, just to respect his rank, I think he's definitely at least a master sergeant now, probably even maybe sergeant major. I don't know. I need to go get in touch with him and see where he's at right now. But I know he's at least a master sergeant now. But back then, when I knew him when I was still in, I knew him as staff sergeant into sergeant first
Mm-hmm.
class. Um, so and then so that being said, yeah, as you go through basic and AIT, they start asking you, hey, who wants to go airborne? And I got signed up for that. And then he was there. He was a paralegal that served in the Ranger Regiment, and he had his Ranger tab. So he was in Ranger Regiment and Ranger qualified in the Army. So he did the same thing where he asked like who wants to be a Ranger. Go to Ranger Regiment. He, selling all the selling points. I was like, yeah, I want to do that. I already wanted to do EOD, and my parents took that away from me. I got to find some action somewhere. So I gravitated to him. Yeah, he was like every day asking me questions, grilling me, what's the Ranger Creed, five principles of patrolling, et cetera, Ranger handbook questions. So he was doing that, and then just like sometimes you would get him wrong, and like yeah, he would just like start smoking me, just doing push-ups, whatever exercises was, and then just like that one day he was like making me do stuff, and I just had the biggest smile on my face, and then he asked me about it, and I just started laughing, and he was, and it was just one of those moments where for him, he told me later, he was like, I realized like you were gonna make it because you don't allow adversity or something hard or that's presented to you to affect you. You still have a positive attitude in the face of adversity, and that's basically. I think that was just due to the buildup of resiliency at a young age, coming all culminating into that point. Was I've always had to face some type of adversity, and I've learned that it's more about how you react to that adversity. That's gonna come you know judge your outcome. It's not the adversity itself. Adversity is going to come in everybody's life, but it's like how you face that adversity is what's going to be the telltale sign of if you're successful or you're not successful. So I would say, yeah, that was like the big moment where he was like, "Yeah, I know you would make it because you laughed in the face of adversity. You stood strong and you kept pushing and you had a positive attitude and you didn't let it shake you."
No, 100%, man, and
Yeah.
just kind of what's a good word for it? Or just going over the whole fact of putting out. You know, what I mean, that's the power of putting out right there. Even if you're not gifted, you're not really maxing out PT, but if someone sees that you're putting out, you're a student of the game. For one, you never quit. Guess what? They're gonna want to mentor you. They're gonna want to drift towards you like whatever rank, but we're gonna and speaking in terms of at the current time, Sergeant First Class Wilkerson saw Sergeant or Private Braxton at the time. He's like, man, this guy's putting out. He doesn't let adversity strike him. Guess what? Now he's gravitated towards him. Now he's consuming all this knowledge, and it's just making him overall better. But if he wasn't showing any initiative, wasn't overcoming adversity, guess what? You're like afterthought. You know what I mean? You don't want to be an afterthought. So that's a perfect example right there of put out and the benefits of putting out. So was anyone else afforded the opportunity too? Like did Sergeant First Class Wilkerson gravitate to anybody else and was like, man, you should try out for Rangers, or was it really just you?
I want to say there was probably one more person that was with me when I was doing it, but they like quickly kind of drifted off, and then eventually it was just me. As people start realizing the seriousness of what they're getting themselves into, they slowly start to drift away. They start
Mhm.
drifting away and falling back. In the face of adversity. They don't want the extra stress and other things like that. But like ultimately, it's like when you do something hard and difficult, there's always usually benefits at the end of whatever hard and difficult thing that you did. So that has to be your driving factor, and it has to be the thing that's in the forefront of your mind. That complacency and like that that okay with not moving forward is what's going to keep you stagnant. And ultimately, if you're stagnant, you're ultimately falling behind in reality because everybody else is moving forward in life.
Okay, got you. And then now we're gonna of course jump into where now you're in the Ranger, you're the Airborne Ranger pipeline, and I think and once again at the time that you went through, it was different because you could go to Airborne and then once you pass Airborne, you go to RAS. Now it's different just because a lot of people were using that as a way just to go to Airborne school, so it's completely different. But not to confuse the audience for those who aren't too military. But anyways, I know Airborne was a pretty walk in the park for you, but was there any just memorable moments at Airborne school, whether it was when you did a jump, like you're like, holy crap, like this is awesome. Like, was there any key moments that you remember in Airborne school?
I mean, overall, airborne school, as far as like the train up, and then having to actually jump and just like sitting in the harness for like forever. So it is what it is. I think the more memorable parts that you remember the most are the people that were like usually scared to jump. Or I remember like there was like this older lady. She was like short, and they were like she was like scared to jump, and I like multiple times they like just like push her out of like the towers and stuff like that to like get her to jump. And but she eventually did it, and she overcame her fears, which was like that's like ultimately like the greatest thing. Is like you saw that even though it was like hard, and you knew she was scared, petrified. I think overall, like I think one of the biggest things I remember is just watching people that were just scared out of their minds continue to push and do what it was to accomplish the task. They were able to get over their fear, and keep doing it. So I think that was like one of the most memorable points. But range school, I mean the airborne school in general was just it was airborne school. You just ran around a little bit. Jumped off towers, learned how to fall over and over again, take your bruises, and then eventually get out of the plane.
Yeah. All right. So now you graduate airborne. Now you're actually in the pipeline of Ranger assessment. But before you go to the actual, I guess you could say, RASP pipeline, you got to go through pre-RASP. So once again, walk us through that experience and what kind of tactics they were using on you and your fellow uh battle buddies without an army slang teammates that they were using that the cadre was using to get y'all to try to quit at pre-RASP.
Yeah. So I wasn't the pre-RAS pipeline wasn't too long for me. I think they classed up pretty fast after I got there. But when I was there, they were just overall the tactics of just dumping your stuff. Like you pretty much you're living in a few bags, couple bags, at least, and you would have to dump all those bags in like a pile of rocks, and then you gotta like hurry up and then repack all those bags as fast as you can. If you didn't meet that time hack, then obviously you had to do some push-ups or flutter kicks or whatever it may be, or some air squats, whatever the exercise was. But that was pretty much the premise of pre-RAS was just getting you into the flow of that they're gonna mess with you. They're gonna put you into a mental state of doubting yourself, doubting what's going on, um, and that was pretty much the sum up of pre-RAS. So it wasn't too bad in my opinion. But yeah, they little tasks to try to force you to rethink your stuff. But if you were in the right place, right time, you passed your basic PT test to get going. Um, everything was fine. So nothing too crazy for as far as pre-RAS.
Yeah, I guess another way to put it too is get used to not being able to meet time hacks because at pre-RAS, they're just going to give you, even at RAS, they're going to give you a lot of times impossible time hacks. And that, of course, is going to go back to, hey, what they're observing you for, which is resiliency and mindset. Okay, cool. I'm making them dump bags again and again and again. Who's going to be that one guy that's like, oh, once they see that, they're attacking you because they're like, okay, this guy's slowly but surely just breaking down compared to someone who just kind of holds it together, gets that poker face going. So, for those who are going through the Ranger uh, assessment pipeline, I'm also going to get Sergeant Braxton's advice after we kind of go through a couple more questions on advice, stuff like that. But just get used to it, embrace the suck. You know what I mean? Once again, you know what you signed up for the most part. I hope you did. And it's rewarding. Pain is temporary. So, you join an elite unit like that. I mean, you're not gonna care about how many times you had to dump your bags and sprints and all that. I mean, you're living the dream, essentially. Anyways, all right, cool. So you got through pre-RAS, was difficult, but wasn't anything pivotal that made you want to quit, or you're like, what am I doing? What did I get myself into, kind of thing. So now
Yeah.
let's, of course, once again, go into RASP experience and you having to deal with adversity within RASP.
Yeah. So yeah, you start getting class stuff, and they just immediately start doing the whole, time hack stuff that seems impossible to meet. After a while, you start learning the little tips and tricks of how to work together to like best overcome these time hacks and what you could do. Maybe you pack your bags a little bit differently. So like, you know, even though you have a bag, you might have smaller bags in there, so it's not a whole bunch of million pieces going everywhere. So you pack your bags a little bit better to where it's like just a whole bunch of Ziploc bags that you can just stuff in there, stuff in rather than just like trying to find every little piece and thing that's just like out of your bag. So you pack a little bit better, which always helps you. You know, the and then a lot of times I think one of the things they told us was like we had like rooms of four, and they're like, just so you guys know, probably based off how this goes, only one of you will make one, maybe two out of your room is going to actually make it to graduation to graduate. So it's just like that happening, you you start, and then like you actually start seeing people that you're trying to graduate with just slowly fall off. And just like, not want to continue because of the adversity, whether it's like, running long distances at pretty extreme paces because all the instructors are, top notch physically fit. Or you just can't deal with the back and forth, the stuff that them forcing you to do stuff that you don't even understand the reasoning why. So then
Mm-hmm.
if you don't understand the reasoning why, then you feel discouraged. So why are you even doing it? So make excuses. I might even tell you this, but I remember this one kid, he quit. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm quitting because I miss my girlfriend and I wanted some Copenhagen."
Oh man, get
Yeah, I
some.
was like, yeah. But in the day is like, if you graduate RASP and you get in Ranger Regiment, you'll find a better looking girlfriend, and people
Mm-hmm.
will give you
Mm-hmm.
Copenhagen because you're
Yep.
within Ranger Regiment. I was like, that's a sad reason to quit, but all jokes aside, yeah, like people just always have their internal struggles where it's like, oh, I miss my family or whatever it is. But in the day, like what I told myself was like, oh, I get in the Ranger Regiment, besides my airborne pay, if I become an NCO at Ranger with the Ranger tab and stuff like that, I get special duty pay. You go on deployments, you make more money there. Except stuff like that. In my mind was like, I'm investing. I'm investing for my future. I'm investing to make a little bit more money, have learn better skills, be around the best, be molded by the best, and understand what it takes to be the best. So it's like if you quit in these situations where you're having these high value people all around you, as far as they're the best of the best of what they do, then you're never going to be able to understand what it takes to be at that level. So I mean, and that just applies in different places. So it's like, being the best operator isn't your goal. Maybe that doesn't apply to you. But if like you're in a business school, like say you're trying to be a businessman, and you're feeling doubts about learning whatever it is to take to be a businessman, you need to stick through it because at the end of the road, that's where you meet all your connections, as far as like people that you can talk to, network with, and that validity of not quitting and sticking with it, and that camaraderie of like, oh, you guys you graduated from the same school or something like that, is going to take you a long way rather than you just quitting. So like just outside of Ranger Regiment, just in life in general, when you like want to quit something, you lose all those connections and all those things that you could have benefited from by just sticking through it. And like you said, pain doesn't last forever, so stick through it and reap the benefits and the rewards of it afterwards. So, but like, yeah, the first 4 weeks was just all about, testing your mental stability, as far as like sticking with it, not quitting, and not freaking out when things got hard. That was literally just the premise of the first 4 weeks, and then passing all your physical fitness stuff, the RPAT, the Ranger Assessment Physical Fitness Test, and then your 12-mile ruck and stuff like that. But once you got past that, and you got out, we weeded out the people who just mentally wasn't dedicated and committed to the team. That's when we went into more of our technical skills, where it's like learning how to drive a Humvee, learning
Mm-hmm.
CQ and CQB, with shooting air guns. A lot of times, first time people touching pistols with their M9, shooting pistols, and then we even had a demolition week where you learn how to make charges or how to breach different doors and stuff like that, and that was more technical. Wasn't as smoke session heavy because you were learning, but if you wasn't paying attention and giving your full undivided attention to whatever you need to learn, and you're just messing around and or being a safety hazard or something like that, of course, you're doing push-ups, you're running to the wood line, you're all that crazy jazz. So uh, that being said, it became more of like a learning at that part, and um, and that's where everything comes together. You're doing things, but you're with the people that are going to easily quit on you when things get hard.
Yeah. No, 100%, man. And man, I mean, there's just so many thoughts going through my head through that, but just the power to break stuff down. People live like I guess sometimes they may look to the finish line already. Like let's go to RASP, right? They're like, oh my God, like I have 7 more weeks of this. How am I gonna get through this? Compared to just taking it day by day, breaking it down, right? Like let's say you go for like an 8 mile run, right? The minute you start, if you're already thinking, dang it, I got 8 miles to go, compared to okay, at 1 mile down, I only have 7 left. I got 7 miles down, I got a couple more left. Okay, if I'm at the 6 mile mark, I only have 2 more miles to go, and that's it. That's nothing. I just did six. What's two more gonna do for me? So when you break things down like that, instead of living in the moment and looking too far into the finish line, that's a way better way of doing it. And uh there was I seen this clip with Delta Force, and even though this is military, they could still transfer. You can use this concept in real life. So basically, the guy had quit. He was tired of just constant rucking, heavy backpacks. Going up down the crazy terrain, all those different things in Delta Force that they do for selection. And the guy quits, and then he gets a warm shower, he gets a warm blanket, goes to the cadre and says, "Hey, okay, cool. When can I come back?" And dude, I mean, it's this simple thing is powerful, and I probably might not say verbatim, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to say, which is you can have a change of mind, but you can't have a change of heart, and that right there is so freaking impactful. You know what I mean? So don't be a quitter, man. Just fight through it, and if and even when you fight through it, let's say you make it through business school or you make it through a selection like RAS, and when you're actually in it, you actually are like, okay, this is cool, but it's just not for me. Then right there. But don't make that decision before you even get there. You know what I mean? So just fight through it the best you can, and that's it. So I don't know. Hopefully that kind of helps out a little bit. Obviously, I've never been through a selection like that, so I'm just trying to throw my words of encouragement. But woo, where was I? Yeah. So you kind of already answered a couple questions I had as far as kind of how everything was structured, just um, different things of that nature. What was there ever? And I had asked you this yesterday, but what moment did you have where you're like, man, like wow, like you kind of had that wow moment, you know what I mean? Like, wow, this special operations, you know what I mean? Was it what moment did you have that motivated you to want to join that elite group even more? Was it through seeing the cadres excellent marksmanship, their ability to teach, their ability to do CQB? Uh what was it that kind of made motivated you even more to want to join uh that elite unit? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's just
Oh, okay,
like
okay.
ultimately is like as a somebody that grew up in a competitive environment that always wanted to compete and be go against other people and different things. And it's like you just knew that in order to be the best or become better, you have to be around the best. Um, and then ultimately, in my mind is like who's you can't be you can't be around any other safer people than people who are within the elite unit.
Yeah.
Where the standards are higher.
Mm-hmm.
They have the threshold of what's acceptable is higher and all that stuff. So it's just like yeah, so you just start seeing just the attitudes, the mindsets is what drives you. But then also when you start seeing that discipline, as far as the attitude and mindset, just transitions to training and how they attack everything when it comes to repetitions and getting better at stuff. And then, like you said, like I remember, yeah, just going, we were doing CQB and stuff like that, and like we were just like shooting and stuff, and then you just start seeing people like guys shooting, and they're shooting at this little hole, but then they're just shooting rounds through that same little hole, not divvying to left, right, up or down. They're just shooting consistent in that same hole, like like just maybe like making it a little bit wider here and there, but like they're just shooting in that same hole. So just like that just shows you that repetition, that consistency, that training, that tough mindset of doing things over and over, doing the simple things great. They do them very well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in turn, gives you that consistency, and that your margin for error just it becomes nothing. You do what you want to do, and you do what you set to do, and that the possibility of anything else divvying to the left or right, up and down, just like you do when you're shooting that target, becomes very minimal. and what you expect from you and what you're doing is very refined. So just that consistency and training things over and over is what I saw, and that was like really one of those amazing moments where it's like, yeah, like they do the simple things well, they do it over and over, and they do it better than anybody else because they do the simple things well.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And freaking that's something you can apply to anything, like I said, whether it's business or whatever the case may be. Be a master of the basics, understand the basics, and look for that 5% that a lot of people ignore. And let's talk about business, and because I know we're doing a lot of like military examples and stuff like that. But as far as business, right? Tim Fertitta, I believe he's the owner of the Rockets. He was talking about look for that 5%, meaning um when, because he has a restaurant, so meaning when you're outside, okay, is there trash in front of the restaurant? Is it picking that up so it keeps that appearance going, or if a regular comes in, knowing where they want to sit, I mean, just looking for the 5%, right? So be a master of the basics. Look for the things that may not seem important, but in the grand scheme of things are important, or are going to get you up to that 100%. Um, and I know we're not too far. We have a little bit more time, so I'm gonna try to just shrink a little bit of stuff. I know you have a meeting you have to go to at 1 o'clock, but I want to finish this off because it would be atrocious if I didn't have you bring up that story of where they had to basically the cadre was like, all right, everybody over here. Look, there's some people somehow who made it through the first 4 weeks, phase one or whatever the case may be, and somehow you pulled through. But we're gonna situate that right now. And basically, he was insinuating what you're not supposed to do, but hey, man, freaking all whatever, everything goes in there, right? And basically, he was insinuating something crazy, and I won't reveal it. I'll let you speak about it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna drop names or anything on this, but um, because yeah, just overall, like, but yeah, it's just like when you're just in like an environment at that point in time, it was just an environment full of men, and you're just going into a job where you can't tolerate weakness, you can't tolerate people who who overall just doesn't belong and they're just hanging by the coattails. Because if you're hanging by the coattails and a a fast moving machine, that that's supposed to be lethal, and not a liability, then you need to start, cutting off that weight that isn't beneficial to you. So they just like, yeah, I had a cadre that was like one day it's like, all right, you guys circle up. We're behind this brown fence, nobody could see us. We were beside our barracks, whatever. And he was like, yeah, it's like some of you guys like know that you don't belong here. Like you don't like the ones people that are here and they're just hanging by a thread and they shouldn't be here because they overall don't have the mental fortitude to not always constantly mess up, that makes you guys do push-ups and get smoked all the time because it's the same people that are getting you smoked all the time because they're not meeting time hacks, they're not doing the right thing, they're not in the right place, they're not in the right time. And overall, when you add all those liabilities up, that's bad when it comes into the combat force. So he's just like, yeah, it's like some of who doesn't need to be here. So you can call them out and make them quit because they do not need to be here. So it's like say he didn't point people out. It was more people because, like you said, we knew who these weak people were. So like, it was just like a lot of times it was like, especially like in the E5 NCOs or whatever, other people just like calling other people out. Nobody called me out, but I was chilling watching for the most
Shit,
part.
I wouldn't
Like
either.
I told you,
I
yeah,
wouldn't either,
nobody
bro.
called me out. Nobody called me out. Like when it came to doing stuff like especially physically and all this other stuff, like I carried my weight. I was there. Like I always tried to help people, stuff like that. Nobody called me out, but there was there's definitely like two people I remember that definitely got called out because they were the weak. They were always one was always messing up, and another one was like a soft spoken E5 that had no leadership ability as far as like communicating, leading from the front. He was always messing up himself when it came to doing very basic tasks that he should have already known how to do as an E5. So like yeah, I remember one of the guys. He was actually bigger than me, but maybe not as like physically fit, but like he was like a bigger guy as far as stature. But like yeah, he got called out and just like they were just pounding on him. I remember he ended up like they weren't supposed to get hit in the face or anything like that, but I remember him ending up with two black eyes and a bloody nose afterwards. But so I don't think he per se, I don't think he quit, and I'm not 100% sure if he made it all the way through, um, as been selected to go through. But I know there was also like another E5, like I said, the weak E5. Another E5 called him out and just like tell him like, yo, you're weak. Like you're not holding up your end of the deal, especially as a E5 in the army, trying to go through the selection. So he like called him out, and he was like just he was like I said, in the day he was soft. So he was getting, pounded on, beat up, whatever. And then the guy that the infield that was on top of him was like, he was like, he's like, "Are you done? Or is are you gonna quit?" And then the guy was like, "No, I'm not gonna quit." He just started swinging at the guy, and the guy like he was like, "All right, fair enough," and just start pounding on him again. And then he like hit him in the side, and
Jesus.
you just heard this like you heard this big whimper, like this like he was like a like that's what it sounded like. It was like everybody was like, "Dang."
Damn.
So I mean, he actually actually quit because he just knew that people like we like he knew that everybody felt that he was a liability. He knew he was a liability, so I know for sure he quit. But yeah, that was like one of those crazy moments where just like you iron sharpens iron. You know, you cut diamonds with other diamonds. So it's like if you're not meeting the standard, then sometimes you need to be able to cut ties, even though it might be hard, cut ties with things that aren't benefiting you. Even if that's people in your circle. Like you said, we were just like one group of people trying to get through the selection. And we were all dependent on each other as far as like meeting time hacks and accomplishing certain goals. So it's like if somebody is holding you back in your life accomplishing a goal, you need to force them out of your life. You got to get them out of your life. You need to take that drag off of whatever you're trying to do and move forward and get around people that are going to push you to be greater than what you are. Be around people who are better than you that can actually give you beneficial information to do better in life. And like I said, get away from those people that are holding you back.
Got you. Yeah, man. Yeah. So we went through a lot of insight as far as what RASP was like, a little bit of the how the pipeline is structured, advice, and as well as mindset regarding to going to a selection like that. So okay, cool, man. Let's go ahead and I just the only thing I want to know about I just want to bring up graduation just for the fact of it being a key moment for people to look on as far as like okay, like this is what happens when you stay through it and you push through. The reward of the rewarding factor of it, you know what I mean, to get that patch slapped on your or just whatever. We're just gonna say slap, right? Slapped on your what would you say your arm, right?
Shoulder,
Yeah,
yeah.
your arm slapped on your arm, and you're just like, dang, like you have that little 5-10 minutes of just like I did it. You're like, wow, like I didn't know I was capable of doing that. So did you have that kind of that feeling at graduation where you're like, dang, like I freaking did it?
Yeah, no, for sure. Because you just have people congratulating you. And then at the time is like they were at the time within regiment, like I said before, I started off as a paralegal.
Yeah.
Later in my military career, I transitioned to infantry. But like I started off as a paralegal, and the time and the attrition rate for paralegals coming into regiment was like one paralegal a year, which was overall like I think we were supposed to have at least like 9 or 10 paralegals or something like that. So it's like, and that's what really made a lot of paralegals be able to stay within regiment a long time. But yeah, like you barely had paralegals making it into regiment. So like my office was like really proud of me, because I was one of the few paralegals that actually wanted to go through RASP and actually make it. My dad was proud of me just because he was Marines and he knew what the Ranger Regiment was and how important they were and how much of a big deal it was that I made it through this selection. So he was proud of me. I think one of the biggest moments was like, yeah, not only throwing on the scroll, but like there's something like cool when you first put on your beret and you're like pulling it down in front of everybody. And, you have the right to wear it. you earn that right to wear it and walk around and feel proud, and then you like kind of pull it down on the side of your face,
Yeah.
looking,
And you are
trying
singing like the
trying
Ranger
to
Creed, and it's even more motivating. You're like just screaming out top of your lungs the Ranger Creed.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, just that moment, the one word I could call it is you're feeling yourself, you sexy, pulling on that thread, feeling sexy.
I got you, man. And once again, due to time, I'm gonna try to summarize some of these questions, eliminate some of the questions. But so you spent time at regimental headquarters, second battalion, and also third Ranger Battalion. So you kind of got a mix of almost everything except for first Ranger Battalion. Um, just in summary, how was your experience at each of those, and which one did you like the most?
Um, I would say, all right, I started at regimental headquarters, and they just wanted to kind of like show me what they did at the highest level, get used to that, and kind of understand how when I go to the battalion, understand both levels of it. So I was there. Like I said, I told you before, I went to range school once when I was at regimental headquarters. Failed land nav, obviously. Like I said, take ownership, my fault. I did. Like I told you, I was like, I went to one of the days my points were in the swamp, so just like a couple points were in the swamp, and I just wasn't finding it. And then another day, it's like I decided to go all the way to my furthest point and work my way back, but I was out there by myself for like an hour and a half. Because usually when you land out, there's like a whole bunch of people out there, and you kind of use other people to help find your points when you need to. But so failed land nav on regiment headquarters, but overall, it was a good experience to kind of like see who my bosses were, who I was like, ultimately turning my work into, and understand their expectations. Then after that, I went to third battalion, where just kind of that's where you go more in the line and you start seeing, you know, eyes on of what everybody's training is, understanding the training cycle of during our multilateral airborne training, which is our airborne our airfield seizures and stuff like that. Just doing our training to recertify within the special operations community every year, things like that. And then usually at that point, it was like yearly deployments, so like 3.5 month deployments to usually Afghanistan at that point in time. Um, and it's getting that cycle in of just repetition and just being around people working at a very high level. So it was always easy to get things done and accomplished within the Ranger Regiment. And then just then also that's when I went through when I was at third. That's when I went through Ranger School itself. And like I said, we probably would hit that on a separate point, but yeah, that's where I went through my extensive amount of time within Ranger School. And then I would say overall second was the best. That's when I was like in charge of my actual uh battalion legal shop. And I didn't have an attorney there for advisement, so I always had to like call or talk to other attorneys whenever I needed. But like I had to make some important decisions on my own. And like they usually put like a well respected paralegal out there to kind of be able to make those decisions because you're out there by yourself um uh quite a bit. But yeah, I would say I like second the most because you had Seattle to the north of you. Tacoma is a nice city. Olympia down south of Fort Lewis was good for shooting guns or riding motorcycles and being outdoors. So I think I like second the most.
All right, awesome, man. And just two more things within this that way we can cap it off to the last topic, which is what you're currently doing now. What do you miss most about regiment that you're just not quite able to get as a civilian?
Um, the camaraderie, you always had, as somebody who's hyper competitive, hyper, you trying to go for it and strive for the best in a lot of these situations. You had a lot of like minded people when it came to your sense of humor, how you like things that you were dealing with in life. Uh, and then you just like the amount of pressure to get things done, and then also I feel like everything was like because everybody was so good at their job, it was always easier to get things accomplished. Which I found it was like definitely harder once I left regiment. It was like things that I would get done in a day took like a week or 2 weeks to get done outside of regiment. That's one of those are the things I miss. Just like everybody was a professional, everybody was the best at what they did. So
Wait, so
that's really what I
did you go
miss.
to a regular unit?
Yeah. Oh, I left in 2017. I left Ranger Regiment and I went to Italy, and then I was stationed in Italy for 3 years. And then
So
when I left,
okay, good.
mhm. And then I was stationed in Italy for 3 years for at the 173rd Airborne Unit, and I was there with pretty much my same commanders from Second Ranger Battalion. Both were Colonel Bartholomew's and then Colonel Burgess. They took over 173rd, and then at that point, that's when I was in 173rd. I was like, oh, I kind of want to like figure out what I want to like. I feel in my opinion, it was like, all right, I kind of did. I was like in an elite unit, but this isn't like the end all be all for my life. And that point was kind of the time I started thinking about what else can I do with my life? Like where can I go to kind of figure out what I want to do next in my life, and take those next steps. And that was where it really began. And then I decided to go to Fort Hood because they have like the career skills program there was pretty good. And that's where I started making my moves to where I am now in my current career.
Yeah, perfect. That was a perfect way to transition right into, of course, what you're doing now, which is you're a software developer for Amazon. So of course, my first question is gonna just entail as far as like what made you stumble across software development? Because as most people may or may not know, tech isn't popularized. It isn't as sex. It's slowly getting that popularity for sure, but it's still not as sexy as a finance, as digital marketing, sales, et cetera, et cetera. So how did you even kind of come across the tech industry?
Yeah. So, uh, when it came to the tech industry, it's like one of those things that I also realized going through my military career is like, the- if you're always working on, it's always good. It's good to work under somebody to gain knowledge and to understand what right looks like in a certain sense.
Yeah.
But um, you're going to always be at the beck and will or call of somebody else as far as how much money you make, what you're able to do, as far as when you get off and all this other stuff. If you don't, make your own money or do your own thing. And ultimately, the best thing in society right now that allows somebody to freely, freelance or do whatever they want, whenever they
Mm-hmm.
want, make
Mm-hmm.
their type of money, make their type of decisions,
Yep.
just decide how they want to influence the world is through technology. Um,
100%.
and then you just like you kind of figure out what is it that I like to do, and then how can I use technology to push what I enjoy, what I like really love being, what powers my life to be motivated and to push forward and like do what I like to do, which was, and I was like, I started looking into like app building, really. I saw it was like something the ad is like, oh, learn how to build an app. Um, but without code, it was what it started out being, and it was this program called Glide. You can Google it. It's called Glide, where you can pretty much build apps without actual code, and you kind of use basic terminologies that are in code, to kind of put it all and piece it all together. So I did that, and it was like I made a like a everybody was the army's transitioned into the Army Combat Fitness Test. I made a pretty much an application um, to teach people to train and give them a guide to learn how to um, uh, like programs and steps to get better within the ACMT. But then at the same time, it's like I didn't actually know how to code. There was always still left and right limits to what you're able to do and what you're able to produce. So I'm back. This is during this time when I'm trying to create this app or figure out this app stuff was I was transitioning back to Texas Fort Hood, and I was like I only had a year on my contract, so then I started looking at the career skills program that they had at Fort Hood, and one of the things they had was a software development boot camp. Um, so I saw that and I was like, oh. right up my alley of what I was interested in doing. So I did this boot camp, used my GI Bill to pay for it, um,
Mhm.
and as I transitioned, and like I think the last 5 or 6 months in the military was just dedicated to doing this class. So I didn't even have to show up to work. I stayed at home every day doing this boot camp.
Yeah.
So it was basically, and what they taught me was JavaScript, and full stack development using React, Node.js, um, uh, Express. Fuck, I'm missing Node.js. I think it was Postgres or something like that. But yeah, it's just like learning how to do full stack development using React and JavaScript and stuff like that. Uh, so that was like my basis of that. And then once that happened, and I had like my boot camp and like some basic knowledge of coding, and I passed the boot camp, then that's another good thing about the boot camp was like we had mentors and people who were dedicated to learning how to like teaching us how to write a resume, different examples of resumes, how they might transition over time, how they might look different over time, and then also how to start doing interviews and how to search for jobs, and they would give us
Mhm.
like job leads. And then they also had people come in that went to the boot camp that are within the FANG companies, the top companies like Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, stuff like that. Like you had people come and talk to us. I know we had one talk to us from Google. He was cool. I think Google, they're like, oh yeah, if you work at Google as a software developer, you can drive your car into work with your laundry in the back, and they'll do your laundry during the day and wash your car. I was like, that's crazy. That's crazy. But but and then I know at Amazon, though, they what really got me was they had like a military apprenticeship program. So what it was is that they would spend 4 months, um, about 4 months teaching you some more basics. They teach you Java for the most part, Java, and then they'll teach you some more JavaScript, which I already had like a leg upon. So I did more advanced stuff in that class just to not waste my time. As far as that, and then they taught you more. They taught you about the cloud, the AWS cloud. They taught you about you taught some Python, and stuff like that, and just more into like the computer science stuff where it comes to like um, algorithms and stuff like that. But that being said, finish that part, and then they assign you to a team, and then you work with that team for like a year, and then once you work with that team for a year, and they find that you're meeting all the checkpoints as a what do you call it, a L4 is the level. You like it starts at a L4 for like the software developer engineer. Once you go past that year and you meet all your checkpoints, they bring you as like not you won't have the title as apprenticeship anymore. You're going to be a full-time employee, working on a team, and that's where I'm transitioning at right now. I'm finishing up my year, and then meeting all my checkpoints, and I'm going to be transitioned over to the team. Hopefully should be in like 2 months in reality. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to making more money. And actually, this year was my first 6 figure paycheck. I mean, six figure W two. So that was like a definitely like a great thing to see when it came in my mail.
No, for sure, man. And that's a beauty thing. That's another beautiful thing about tech is there's so many online free resources, especially for programming. There's Code Academy, there's Treehouse. I mean, there's just all sorts of different things. There's even affordable. If you're gonna go to a boot camp, there's affordable ones out there. I've been looking into those as well. And or yeah, so there's all these different resources that you for sure can use. So utilize your free resources, learn how to use LinkedIn, GitHub, to hold all your projects and be able to display your projects. That way you can put that on your LinkedIn resume so they can check that URL out. Boom, takes them to all your projects. Projects are going to be key whether it's software development, cybersecurity. You have to be able to apply theory and put it to hands on. So I'm not in the industry quite yet, but that's for sure something I constantly hear get preached on interviews and even when I talk Sergeant Braxton and stuff like that. Um, I'm not really going to go into life work balance because that's kind of, as people already know, it's pretty good, especially at the facility. They invest a lot of things like games and all the stuff.
Mhm.
Why? Because obviously they want you to stay there. If there's a bunch of things that are easy access that you can find at home and stay there, guess what? You're in the office more, you're coding more, you're getting all the tasks done more. So it's a pretty good lifestyle, most definitely. Let me see. I'm trying to see what questions. Uh, I mean, I had a question about the veterans. I mean, for veterans though, like you can use you see how you can use your benefits to utilize boot camp. You don't need to go to a 4 year degree sometimes anymore because 4 years is just too long, and also sometimes the information is outdated. So try to see what you can use, get certifications, different things like that, and learn how to Google.
Yeah,
Google's
I
gonna
can
be
Yeah, I can follow up on that a little bit.
yeah. Go ahead for sure.
Just so people can understand, from what I've experienced is that a lot of people that go get their 4 year degrees, they learn all the information, but they don't know how to apply it. So a
Hmm.
lot of people love seeing guys come from boot camps because when you go to a boot camp, you always have to do projects to show
Yep.
the things that you applied. Like you actually have to code something. You got to actually, create a website, or you have to create an app or something like that. Like, and you have something tangible to say, I've actually created this functioning thing that shows all these different principles about coding, and I can do this right now for you, rather than a college student where they might be able to do it and they will have to the teach them a little bit more before that rubber hits the track and they're actually going.
No, 100%. And once again, when some of these recommendations, like once again, I'm not in the industry or anything like that, so like even if it comes out smart, I'm just trying to get my 2 cents the best I can, right? But if you can learn HTML, start off with HTML, CSS, and then JavaScript. If you can learn those three, I mean, you'll be straight. Those are for the most part always beginner friendly languages. And once you pick up one, you can kind of be able to pick up other program languages from there. But anyways, my last two questions, Sergeant Braston, are going to be the first one's going to be: are you worried AI is going to take over developer jobs?
No. I mean, I feel like AI can do but so much. AI is going to answer basic questions, but AI will never know how to practically apply whatever you ask them directly to your actual issue and current mission. If that makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
so it's like I can't tell AI this is what Amazon's about. This is what Amazon's creating. I need you to code out this exact subtask of whatever
Yeah, yeah.
grand scheme of things on like it could teach you the basic practical stuff of how something is usually done, and what's the right way it should look, but it can never actually apply it to your code directly. You're always going to need people to apply it to your code directly and whatever you're doing, because ultimately, like, when all everything that's being made as far as your business is through analytics and the data that's created and what the customer overall wants. So what the customer like ultimately wants is going to vary, and you can't ultimately just say, "I need you to create this." I think, like I said, it's going to be a learning tool to. It's going to be a safety net for the basics, but you as a professional will always still need to know how to apply it to whatever you're working on.
Got it. I had alluded to two questions, but you already, you honestly, I just realized you already answered that question, which is like future plans. But you already alluded to that you're about to stumble upon a new job or a higher level, which means more pay and stuff like that. So that kind of concludes everything else. We kind of hammered everything. The last topic, um, you don't have to if you don't really know how to word it, because I was trying to find a way to word it myself, but I called it life purpose. You know what I mean? Just kind of any final thoughts you may want to give, or and what it is you're how it is you're going to be utilizing your time until your time on this earth is up, as cringy and weird as that sounds, but it's the reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I got like two kind of points I can hit with that. I think the first, like, what go more into like what my life purpose is and things I want to do is ultimately, like I said, I'm in tech. I want to be able to create things within the tech industry that overall benefits people. So like I'm working at Amazon, but I'm always going to be working on my side projects. My next, that startup or whatever, that million billion dollar idea that just like takes off.
Yep.
And then like maybe like Facebook or Instagram wants to, Facebook or Meta, whatever wants to buy me out or something. That's the that's the dream. But
Yeah.
overall, you got to do the groundwork, you got to do the basics to get there. But get that going in my life, and then also just like focusing hard on finances, and not just waste my money. Finding new money doesn't mean that you just need to waste it. So just like figuring out, pay debts away, learning how to invest, and I want to learn how to go into real estate within the next couple of years, and start, doing things in that realm or nature because just to diversify your portfolio of things you have, get deeper into understanding the stock market. One thing that Chat GPT and you're talking about AI was, just things that I've been watching is people have been able to um, uh, code uh, their applications or whatever they're using to buy and sell for them based off the principles they already have like set based off trading. So
Mhm.
there's always like these people like, oh, let me teach you how to trade, and they always have like these flashcards and these things that you see as far as like the rules of trading and things they want to follow, how like the trends and stuff that happen. You can code that and you can make an application trade, sell and buy for you. And people are starting to make a lot of money based off that. So that's another little side note that I want to kind of get into. But like I said, can't get too many irons in the fire at once, and I need to focus and get one thing going at a time. I'm very conscious about that in my life at this
Wow.
point in time. So that yeah, and then especially, and then also just like keep people in your circle that are in the same realm of mindset of what you're trying to achieve. And a lot of times, even better, you need people who have accomplished more than you, who's done more than you in your circle. So if like you grow out, if you sometimes you're going to outgrow your group, and you just need to keep, and then you can keep people around that's like all that's going to be like mentally stimulating and beneficial to you. But you got to always keep bringing people in your circle that's going to add value, add knowledge, and you're always learning how to do things. And then that was like, kind of one thing that I wanted to talk about, but then also, just more on like the mental aspect, going and being in the military. You think about things differently about, life. Uh, like I said, you even then, like, you build, I think it's like one of those things where you build resiliency, to life events, and even sometimes trauma. Like you build resiliency and you don't react to trauma or bad thing or things that happen in your life the same as other people do. Um,
Mhm.
and I think one of those things that you always have to do is like you still have to stay self-aware, especially if you want to be a great leader. Like you might
Yeah.
be pushing, and you might have that resiliency to push through things, but you might be able to do that a little bit better than other people. But in order to be a great leader, you can't just be like, "Oh, I'm doing it, so you do it." You got to be able to understand the people around you, how they think mentally, where is their mental state like that state is. So you're able to communicate effectively to motivate them. And if they're in your circle, like if you're running a business or you're doing something and you're trying to, and are you working on the same project or whatever it may be, how to be able to motivate them and get them taking, get to know who they are, and how they view things, and if they're struggling with something, what's going to motivate them to get past that struggle, to do things. So that, I mean, I think that's being more like socially aware, emotionally aware, not only just for yourself and how you're perceived by other people, but what how you can, motivate and make people's lives better, who might not be as resilient as you, and how you can build them up. Um, and then that being said, also, it's just like when it comes to that resiliency, sometimes you don't always realize, um, that your resiliency might come off as being cold. Um, you might seem shut off as other people. You gotta like stay cognizant of that, because some people might think, oh, you're emotionless, you don't feel emotions, but in reality, as far as my truth and how I did view things is like, no, I have emotions, but I mean, I process them and I deal with them and I set them aside and I deal with it, but I don't feel like I have to like outwardly express it all the time, or or like show it on my face. That I've processed or I've dealt with whatever. But at the same token, it's like some people don't always realize that, and sometimes you just gotta be able to you realize that and be able to communicate and over communicate something that's what you like might not naturally do or be about. But sometimes people aren't always the same, so you got to be aware of your situations and different, especially like switching from the military to like civilian. We communicate different. People receive information differently, and then just being aware of that, and being able to communicate effectively in different environments I think, is very key. And being very socially and emotionally aware, because it's going to be able to benefit you from jumping from one group of people, talking a certain way, being a certain way, to going to another group and understand you need to be able to adjust and translate a little bit differently so they understand what you're trying to say, and you become more successful person, and you're able to reach more people, with whatever you're trying to achieve and do in life. So I think those are my little hot topic things that I
Yeah.
think are really important as far as like what guides my life.
Yeah, man. And well, that concludes the episode, man. And I just honestly, I can't say thank you enough for taking your time to come on here, taking time out of your day. You could be doing obviously you could be doing other things. So this is definitely some great gems sprinkled out through every topic that we touched on that people could definitely look back on as motivation or as wanting to follow in the same footsteps as you. So just want to say, guys, thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and till next time.